Hey everyone, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm. Today we are in the kitchen and we are going to make a homemade angel food cake. If you've never tasted a homemade angel food cake, you are really missing out. If you'd like to learn how to make one, stick around. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. Well, the recipe that I'm going to be using for our angel food cake today comes from my KitchenAid recipe book. And again, this book is quite worn because there's several recipes in here that I like to use. And you can tell that I've used this recipe because there's lots of splatters on it. So this recipe uses sifted cake flour. Now, I don't keep sifted cake flour on hand. What I can do is I can make my own with regular flour. And for each cup of flour, you remove 2 tablespoons of the flour and substitute 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So this recipe calls for 1.5 cups of flour, and the flour they want is sifted cake flour. So in order to make my own, I put 1.5 cups of regular all-purpose flour in here, then took out 3 tablespoons, and you want to level them off, 3 tablespoons of the flour that was in here, put it back in the flour jar. Then I got 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and put it into my flour mixture. Then I've just mixed it around with a whisk. We're also going to be sifting this too. Now, when I put this flour into my measuring cup, I first fluffed my flour in my canister so it wasn't just packed in there. I fluffed it up with the cup that I was measuring with, and then I went in and scooped some off, and then I took a knife and just cut the top off so that it was nice and level. This is an important step in an angel food cake. Usually I am not this precise, but for an angel food cake, if you want the texture to be right and you want it to work out the very best, follow these directions, okay? So what I have here is 1.5 cups of cake flour now. Okay, I've already substituted the cornstarch. All right, so what it says to first do is sift the flour and a third of a cup. Let me use my glasses here. Sift the flour and 1/3 cup together 3 times on waxed paper. Now we have more than 1/3 cup of sugar that's going to go into this recipe. We have 1 2/3 cups of sugar. And I've got that measured out right here, 1 2/3. But for this part, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our flour, that flour that I just made, we're going to put it into the sifter, and then we're also going to add 1/3 cup of our sugar. Okay. Now, if you don't have a sifter, and this one's just a really old sifter that I have, you can just use a mesh strainer like this. Put it on top of a piece of wax paper or in a bowl, so when you add your ingredients, it won't be all over the place. Put it in, all the ingredients in, and just do this, and it'll sift it. I have the old sifter here that I'm going to use. So here is my cake flour. And that is 1.5 cups. Then I'm going to take a 1/3 cup of sugar, and I'm putting it right in there too. Okay. Now I've got my wax paper laid out right here, and I am just going to real quickly sift it once. And it said to sift it 3 times. Once. And when you get to do it again, I'm going to put my sifter over a bowl. Just pick up your wax paper and gently fold it and pour it in. We've sifted it twice. And this is our last sifting. And then I'm going to put that back into my flour bowl. Okay. That is our 1½ cups of sifted cake flour, 1/3 cup of sugar, and we've sifted it 3 times. We'll set it aside. The next thing, and the thing that a lot of people are nervous about, is separating your egg whites and your egg yolks. So this one takes between 12 to 15 eggs. It takes 1½ cups of egg whites. Okay, so what I do is I have 3 containers. I have my egg white container here. It's a measuring cup, so I can measure when I have 1½ cups. I have a cup right here that I'm going to be cracking each individual egg in. And then I have a place to put my egg yolks. And if I accidentally get a yolk in a white, I have to discard it and it'll go in my egg yolks. I am not going to waste my egg yolks. I'm going to make some custard with that. You can use that to make tapioca pudding. I might even make frozen custard like ice cream with that, but I will be using those egg yolks. And I'm sorry about the noise if you hear that. They are working on our little secret garden. They're sawing and digging, so hopefully that'll be done today. All right, so here we go. I crack the egg, open the egg, and then I use the egg shell to push the egg yolk back and forth and get as much of the egg white as I can. Then I put the egg yolk in that cup, discard the shell. Okay, now as soon as I've got my egg white in this container, I put it over here. That's a good egg white. Do the same thing. Now there are all kinds of tools out there that help you separate egg whites and egg yolks. Some people use their hands. They pour it into their hand. I just do it this way. This is the way I was taught. Whoops, I have my egg white in here still. I need to get that in there. I don't want to ruin 2 egg whites if one of them cracks the yolk. Now I tell you, when we used to have chickens, the cakes that I would make with those egg whites, those angel food cakes, they were the most delicious cakes. So moist. I noticed that these egg yolks are pretty tender. These are pretty fresh eggs that we just bought. And as soon as I drop them in here, they're breaking. So don't be surprised if we crack one and it gets the egg yolk and the egg white. I have had these eggs sitting on the counter for about an hour. The recipe does not say whether you need to have room temperature eggs or not, but I have found that when I'm beating eggs and egg whites, I usually do, it beats up better with room temperature. So right now I've done 6 eggs and I have almost a cup. So the ones that I was using there were pretty big, and then I've got a couple of small ones here. And you know, all eggs are different. The yolks might be smaller and more egg white. Different sizes. Whoops, did you see what I did? I have 2 egg whites in there, so luckily I did not crack that egg yolk and waste 2 eggs. Sometimes I just get cracking and out of habit forget. Sometimes I'm just in a hurry to get it done. I've got lots to do today and want to get it done. We are just about at the 1.5 cup. One of the things I'm doing today is I worked up cherries last night from our cherry tree, sour cherries, and this one I broke. This one has a little tiny bit of yolk. I almost didn't see it, but I'm not using it. If you get egg yolk in your egg whites, it's not going to whip as well. And then I'm checking to make sure that it didn't leave any egg yolk in my cup. It was in the middle, so it didn't. These are tender egg yolks. And actually, sometimes that could mean that they are older, actually, because the fresher ones usually stand up a little higher. Okay, I think if I add this one more, I will have 11 eggs for mine, since I used one that was broken. Yeah, I think I misspoke earlier. I think you're going to have your older eggs are going to crack, the yolks are going to crack a little bit easier. The fresher eggs have a much more sturdy yolk. I think that's the way that goes. If you know and I'm wrong, please write in the comments and let us all know. I'm getting this aside here. This set aside. The egg yolks are being set aside. That's for another recipe. And now I have my 1.5 cups of egg whites. And that's the tractor out there, if you're hearing that. All right, let's see what we need to do now. It says, attach the bowl and wire whip. Add the egg whites to the bowl. Now, before you add your egg whites, make sure you don't have any grease. If you made chocolate chip cookies the day before, make sure it is cleaned out good. You don't want to have any oil or anything like that in any of your bowls or on your spoons that you're using to make an angel food cake. It does not work well with the egg whites. So we are going to pour our egg whites in here. We've got our wire whisk on, and we are going to whip. Now, if you have a handheld mixer, it's the same thing. It's just you use your handheld mixer. I know my mom always told us that my grandmother used to make angel food cakes. And back then on the farm, you know, they had their own chickens and everything. She would use a hand whisk, and she would have to whisk them up. And that would take an awful lot of work. So I'm sure they were pretty special when they had angel food cakes. That would be a lot of work. So I'm going to turn this on. It says turn it on to speed 6 gradually. Now, this was my old, I'm trying to think which one this was. This would have been my older mixer. This one's a Professional 600. I think this was my heavy duty one, but it didn't have the watts, the higher watts. So speed 6 may be a little different on this one, but we'll see. So we're going to gradually turn it up. And we're going to whip until they're nice and frothy, 20 to 30 seconds. I'm going to show you what frothy looks like. This is frothy. There's still egg whites down at the bottom, but they're just getting all mixed up. It's not white, real white. It's just got little bubbles on the top, but everything's just kind of broken up and loosened up. Now that my egg whites are frothy, not whipped, just frothy, we are going to put in cream of tartar, salt, and flavoring. So the cream of tartar is 1.5 teaspoons. And so I've got my cream of tartar right here. And cream of tartar is used to help get those egg whites nice and whipped. So there's one teaspoon. And there's 2 teaspoons. We need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And normally I use the kosher salt when I cook, but because this is more of a light and a real delicate texture, I'm going to go ahead and use table salt. You could also use canning salt, but something that is easy to dissolve and won't have a big lump in there. I know that the kosher salt will dissolve in there, but this just gives me a sense knowing that this is going to work out just fine. Okay, so I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm glad I looked at that because I have 1/2 teaspoon right here. So I'm just going to use half of that. All right. I get to talking and I forget what I'm doing. And then it says 1.5 teaspoons of flavoring. So what I use for flavoring is I use half and half, vanilla and almond flavor. So I use about 1 teaspoon of almond flavor. And I know it says 1.5 teaspoons of flavoring, but I use 1 teaspoon of both. 1 teaspoon. You can use straight almond. You can use straight vanilla. Make sure I've got a good 1 teaspoon of vanilla or of almond flavor there. And but I like both. I like to have a little bit of both. It gives it a richer flavor because we know that angel food cake doesn't have much flavor already. It's just that hint of the vanilla and the hint of the almond that makes it good. Now it says turn to speed 6 and continue whipping until the egg whites are almost stiff but not dry. About 2 to 2.5 minutes. So I'm going to turn this on and then I'll bring you back in 2 to 2.5 minutes. All right, that was 2 minutes and I'm looking at it and it looks like it's in good shape. I did not go up to power 10 or anything. I kept it on the power that it said, 6. So right now you have stiff peaks, but it's not dry. They're still nice and moist, not looking dry. Now we're going to start adding the sugar. We have 1 1/3 cup of sugar left, and it says turn to speed 2 and gradually add remaining 1 1/3 cup of sugar, about 1 minute. Stop and scrape bowl. Now, here is why my recipe books look the way they look. I had some egg white residue or something right here from my eggs. I laid my recipe book on it, and now I've got egg white residue. I'm going to have to wipe this off. Luckily, I think I have 2 of these books, so. All right. So what we're going to do again is, let me make sure. Now I'm turning to speed 2. Okay. Okay, they say to do that for about 1 minute. You don't want to overbeat, but you want to make sure that it's mixed in. Okay, so at this point, this is what my egg whites look like. And do you see how they're kind of running a little bit? Okay, now we are going to start adding the flour. Remember, this was our sifted flour. So it says, remove bowl, sift about 1/4 of flour mixture over the egg whites. Fold in gently with a spatula, making 10 to 12 strokes. Repeat until all flour is folded in. So they want us to get the mix or the sifter again, but I'm not going to do that. That's not something I usually do, but if you want to follow the rules exactly, you'll take your sifter, put about 1/4 of this in there, sift it over, then fold. Okay, but I'm just going to take about 1/4 of it, lay it gently around, and when they say to fold, and it says use about 10 to 12 strokes, and remember your spatula needs to be grease free too. They want you to go around the bowl and pick up some batter at the bottom and fold it over. This is called folding over. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then I'm going to go through the middle, and 12. Okay, there's 1. Then we're going to do about 1/4 of the batter again. Sprinkle it on there. The same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, go through the middle, 8, 9, through the middle, 10, 11, 1/4 of the, but it's half of what's left now at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, through the middle, 11, and 12. And then the last of it, sprinkle it across it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I'm going through the middle a couple of times just to look and make sure there's no dry spots of unmixed flour. And that looks good. Tastes good too. You will need an Angel Food pan. Now I've got a square one like this and this round one. We're going to use the round one. Make sure there's no grease. You do not oil it. You do not do anything to your pan because it needs to have the sides to climb up and stick to make it rise. So we're going to pour this in carefully, and we're going to kind of watch to make sure we don't get air pockets in here. But we'll take a knife here in a second and cut through it. And you handle it very carefully because right now there's a lot of air incorporated into this batter, and we don't want to knock that air out. That air is what is going to help it get taller when it bakes. Now I know the mixes that you get at the store are so much easier. And they are good. They are good. But this is delicious. When you've tasted a homemade one, you are going to know why people take the time to make one. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just take this knife, and I am just kind of dragging it through the batter so that if it hits an air hole, hopefully that will allow it to escape and batter to take the place of the air hole. Okay, don't want to overdo that, but just enough that you've gone through all the spots. Then I'm just going to smooth it out a little bit. Make sure I don't have one side really full and the other side half full. You'll get a crooked cake. And there we have our batter. I'm going to put this in the center of the oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's going to bake for 35 minutes. And then we're going to take it out and we're going to invert the pan, turn it upside down for an hour before we do anything to it. It's got to cool. So into the oven for 35 minutes at 375 degrees. All right, I'm back with the cake. We have a lot going on here today. This is Saturday and we've got one of our sons home for the weekend. And in the background here, I am dehydrating lemon, or the lemon peel. Got some stuff canning over there. This came out of the oven and it looks marvelous. It's completely cool. It's been out of the oven probably for a couple of hours. All I'm going to do now is just go around the outside edge of it. And I just use like a steak knife. And then pop that out. Just like that. Then we need to go around the bottom edge. And again, just using the knife. Okay, and then the top around the tube. And this should just pop right out. Now I'm going to take a little bit of regular sugar, and I like to just sprinkle the pie plate or whatever I'm putting a cake on with a little bit of sugar. And I think I could have it like this, but I think I'm going to go ahead and have it like this, because we're not going to be eating it all like an angel food cake. I'm going to use half of this to make a strawberry tort with, strawberry cheesecake tort. And so it is very moist. So let's get a slice here and see what the texture looks like inside. And I'm going to use a bread knife because this cake is the texture somewhat of bread. And this serrated edge will cut it nicely without it falling all to pieces. And I'm just going to cut a small piece out for us to look at and then sample. Oh, that looks good. It is really moist, really moist. I'm going to bring you up to the camera a little bit. There we go. Very nice. I'm just going to... Oh, you're here just in time for a taste test. My son just came in. You're going to have to lean down and get in the camera. He's 6'2", so a little tall. Wow, I've got to go way up here with this. What do you think of that?
Delicious.
we are the angel food cake fans, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Andy and Drew don't care for it quite as much. I mean, they like it, but not quite as much as we like it. But
very good.
Thank you for coming by. They're getting ready to go fishing, so getting the boat going. All right, so if you like angel food cake, you have got to try homemade angel food cake. It is delicious, so good, so moist, and you won't be able to stop eating it. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe, like, and share. I would really appreciate that. Bye-bye.